Welcome back to Britain Unspun, where we cut through the slogans, the spin, and the carefully polished nonsense coming out of Westminster. I'm Jack.
And I'm Olivia.
Tonight, a staggering figure, nearly £1 billion. That's the amount reportedly paid last year in subsidies linked to Drax power station. One company, one site, one huge bill. And the question is brutally simple. Why are the public still paying so much for this?
Because we keep being told the country's moving towards a cleaner, smarter, cheaper energy future. But then you look at a figure like that and think, hang on, cheaper for whom exactly?
Exactly, because ordinary people hear green transition and assume efficiency, innovation, lower costs over time. What they do not imagine is nearly £1 billion effectively being funneled into a power station that burns imported wood pellets.
And that's the bit that really jars, isn't it? The public conversation makes it sound as though we've entered some sleek, high-tech future, but strip away the PR, and what are we looking at? A giant power station burning trees, with the taxpayer and bill payer helping to keep the whole thing afloat.
And not just a little help, we're talking about a level of subsidy that would make most industries faint. If this were any other sector, people would be asking much louder questions.
They would, because this is where the debate gets awkward. Supporters say Drax still plays a role in grid stability and energy security. Critics say the public is being sold a fantasy, that burning biomass is somehow clean, modern, and beyond scrutiny.
And that word scrutiny is the key one, because for years the public has been told this is all necessary. Necessary for net zero, necessary for reliability, necessary for transition. But nearly £1 billion is not loose change down the back of the Treasury sofa. That is serious money.
Money that people might reasonably think could go elsewhere. Lowering bills, strengthening the grid, improving infrastructure, supporting newer technologies. Instead, a massive chunk goes into a model many people thought should have been temporary.
That's the thing. Temporary schemes in Britain have a funny habit of becoming semi-permanent lifestyles. Once the subsidy tap is on, it never seems to turn off cleanly.
And politically, this is dynamite. Because ministers love talking about the future. They love the rhetoric of transformation. But voters are increasingly asking a very old-fashioned question. What am I getting for my money?
Quite right, because if families are still facing high energy costs and businesses are still under pressure and the country is still being told to brace for tight capacity in the colder months, then people are entitled to ask whether this is value for money or just policy inertia.
And let's be honest, Jack, for many people, biomass is one of those issues that sounds obscure until you phrase it plainly. Wait, we're paying huge sums to burn wood for electricity? That is when eyebrows start rising.
And rising fast, because once you put it in plain English, it sounds less like a sleek energy revolution and more like a workaround that became an orthodoxy.
Supporters of Drax will say, hold on, this plant matters. It has supplied a meaningful share of Britain's electricity. It helps when the system's under pressure. It offers dispatchable generation when the wind is not blowing and demand is high. And those arguments do matter.
They do matter, but here's the counter. If something is genuinely so essential, then why does it still need such enormous support? And if it does need that support, should the public not get a far clearer, more honest explanation of what they're paying for?
Exactly, because too much of this debate gets hidden behind jargon, renewables obligation, transition support, security of supply. Fine, but the public understands numbers, and they understand when a number gets this big.
And there's another point here. This is not just about Drax, it is about the wider political culture around energy. Once a policy gets wrapped in moral language, green, sustainable, future-facing, too many politicians become terrified of asking tough questions about cost.
Yes, because the moment you question the value, someone tries to present that as opposition to progress itself. But that is not serious debate. You can support cleaner energy and still ask whether a particular subsidy regime has gone too far.
You not only can, you absolutely should, because otherwise transition becomes a blank check.
And blank checks are exactly what voters are fed up with. They've seen them in transport, they've seen them in procurement, they've seen them in consultancy contracts. And now they look at energy and think, is this another version of the same story?
A grand public mission with very private winners.
That line lands because it feels uncomfortably close to the truth.
Now, to be fair, the government has already moved toward a future arrangement that is supposed to reduce subsidy levels from 2027. Ministers say that will cut support and tighten the conditions. So even Westminster seems to recognize the old model could not continue untouched.
Which raises the obvious question. If it needed cutting, why did it get this far in the first place?
There it is, the question at the heart of the whole affair. Because once government quietly admits the support was too generous, the public naturally asks who signed off on years of excessive cost.
And whether anyone will ever really be held accountable for it.
Spoiler alert, in Britain, accountability is often the first thing burned, and unlike biomass, that seems to happen without any subsidy at all.
That is painfully accurate.
And politically, this could become a bigger issue, because the more pressure there is on household budgets, the less tolerant people become of complicated moral lectures attached to expensive policy choices.
Especially when the same people making those choices often sound as though the public should simply stop asking awkward questions.
Well, awkward questions are exactly what this deserves. What is the true environmental balance sheet? What is the true cost to consumers? What is the long-term plan? And why does Britain so often end up paying top price for temporary solutions?
And maybe the bluntest question of all, if this is the future, why does it feel so expensive and so old-fashioned at the same time?
That is the line, Olivia, because that is the contradiction sitting right in front of us. A supposedly modern energy strategy that still leaves the public staring at a near $1 billion support figure and wondering how on earth that became normal.
And once the public starts wondering that, the political class should be nervous.
Because when people feel they've been sold an elegant story wrapped around an ugly bill, patience wears thin very quickly.
And energy policy, more than almost anything else, hits people where it hurts, in their home, in their finances, in their sense of whether this country is being run sensibly.
So the Drax question is bigger than Drax. It's about trust, it's about transparency, and it's about whether Britain can have an honest energy debate without dressing every eye-watering cost up as an unavoidable virtue.
Because if we cannot even ask where nearly £1 billion has gone and whether it was well spent, then what exactly is democratic accountability for?
That is where we'll leave it for now.
If you've enjoyed this episode, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who is just as fed up with being told not to notice the bill.
Thanks for listening to Britain Unspun. And remember, when the numbers stop making sense, it's usually because someone somewhere doesn't want the questions asked.